Hi class, this is Criminology 4333 in Chapter 5. In this chapter we discuss the uh, strain and cultural deviance theories as they relate to criminology. There is an importance in using theories to guide our observation of crime in society. We can't observe everything. We certainly can't observe everything at the same time. So what theory does is focuses our observation of the world, and for our purposes, crime. And from that, we're able to do certain realities about how crime takes place in society. We also not only use single theories, but we also combine theories, and there's an importance in combining theories because theories make assumptions about something in the world, and those assumptions are typically taken for granted from a given perspective. And those are the things that we relatively ignore. We simply assume. In sociology, we assume biology. We don't necessarily go into the nature of biology. We don't necessarily go into the nature of psychology per se, but we do focus upon the influences of forces outside of the individual, outside of our biological makeup and our psychologies. So combining these theories enables us to explain more about crime in society. The theory of strain is a very important theory when looking at deviance in general. Deviance is the umbrella term for all violations of the rules of society. Crime is a very particular type of deviance in that it is something that violates not only our informal expectations and rules, but our very formal and institutionalized rules for behavior in society. Strain examines the relationship between our goals and the means of achieving those goals in society. Goals can be legitimate, for example, to have a house to live in, a car to drive, food to eat, clothing, shelter. All of these things are legitimate goals. But some of our goals can be illegitimate. For example, we have the goal of taking someone else's property or inflicting physical harm on someone else. Those are illegitimate goals. So we can have legitimate goals and illegitimate goals. We can also have legitimate means and illegitimate means of achieving our goals. Means are the ways in which we achieve our goals in society. We can have legitimate means. For example, we may have a legitimate goal of having a car, and we have a legitimate means. We pay for it. We work, we save our money, we make a down payment, we purchase the car, we make payments. That's a very legitimate way. But we can also have legitimate goals, but illegitimate means. We want a car, we need a car, and we may choose an illegitimate mean, for example, stealing a car. And so this becomes an act of deviance. Then if we have legitimate goals and legitimate means, this is considered conformity, not necessarily deviance, but it will require only either legitimate means or illegitimate goals in order for us to have an act of deviance. So you can have a legitimate goal but illegitimate means, or you can have legitimate means but illegitimate goals. I hope your eyes are not crossed. But only one needs to be illegitimate for it to be an act of deviance, either goals or means. If both are legitimate, this is considered conformity and not an act of deviance. Robert Merton is responsible for our understanding of strain in society. It has elements and assumptions from more than one theory, from functionalism in terms of how society is ordered and how society functions or works normally, but also has the idea of conflict in that not everyone has access to the same means of achieving their goals in society. Therefore, you have this idea of strain. So there is a strain between having the legitimate means of achieving our goals. And people who lack those legitimate means will commit acts of deviance and commit crimes. And this is one theory that explains a particular type of crime in society. Inequality is very much a part of our understanding of crime. We know that not everyone, we say that everyone is created equal, but not everyone has equal opportunity, not everyone has equal resources, the same resources, means of achieving their goals or meeting their basic human needs in society. So we look at inequality and its relationship to crime and deviance in society. And when we look at strain theory, we're particularly looking at people who lack those opportunities, who lack those resources. And we also have in society discrimination on various grounds. We have racial discrimination, age discrimination, gender and sex discrimination, and these have consequences for influencing whether or not we have the legitimate means of achieving our goals in society. Class also intersects with crime and deviance in society as well. Class is an economic factor. So in general, it is economic. More specifically, it has to do with your class level or socioeconomic status is what we prefer, also known as SES. Socioeconomic status is a complex of your income, your occupational prestige, and your level of education. All of these are complex that explain your socioeconomic status, or what level or position you hold in society. We have an area called stratification that looks at how society is layered from top to bottom, and your position that you hold on that ladder or on that pyramid, whatever image works in your mind, a pyramid or a ladder. If you're at the top, each position from top to bottom and all points in between represent a status point, your status. Where is your status? People of high status are more likely to commit what we call white-collar crimes, crimes that are committed within the course of their occupations. Underclass people are more likely, or people who are at the lower rungs of the ladder or the pyramid of socioeconomic status in society, are more likely to commit blue-collar crimes. And so the nature of the crime, there tends to be a connection between your socioeconomic status, your level, and the types of crime you are more likely to commit. We can also see parallels between other demographics as they relate to strain and socioeconomic status. One factor would be gender. Women tend to be at a lower rung, if you will, at a lower level within our socioeconomic ladder or our stratification system. And so we see that intersection. We tend to see women who are more likely to be in poverty, to tend to have lower incomes. And so therefore, this explains some aspect of crime as it relates to women in society. We might look at the connections between race and socioeconomic status in our stratification system, where we see whites at the top of the socioeconomic ladder, and then we see racial minorities, Hispanics, Native Americans, blacks at the lower levels of the socioeconomic ladder. There's also theories really as they relate to cultural deviance. These are people that tend to have values that are more likely to legitimize deviance and crime, to reinforce the idea of deviance and crime. Being deviant, breaking the rules, or stealing, in some areas of society, some subcultures of society, is a mark of status. It's something that is valued and part of a value system. And so the cultural deviance perspective helps us understand the nature of our values as they relate to obeying the rules or breaking the rules within society. We also have a theory known as the social disorganization theory, where we have generations of people who come here primarily as immigrants, and they are isolated from the large society. They are not able to participate in the economy or the mainstream of the economy. Therefore, they create their own economies and ways in which to acquire their basic needs and the things that they desire in society, and they're more likely to participate in deviant behavior and lack the means, the legitimate means of achieving their goals in society. Another theory, as it relates to cultural deviance, is differential association. This is by Edwin Sutherland in his Principles of Criminology. And Edwin Sutherland looked at how crime and criminal behavior is a learned behavior, not something inherent within people. They're born bad or born criminal. But from his perspective, we learn deviance. We learn criminal behavior through interaction. We learn it within groups that we associate ourselves with. It includes looking at the use of technologies like today in cyber crimes. And these are very sophisticated types of crimes. Also, there is a rationalization. So this idea of attacking the government, that the government is bad, that corporations are bad, and it legitimizes that type of deviance and crime. Laws are defined as being bad laws or unfair laws, and so therefore this becomes part of this culture of deviance from this perspective as well. So we have this idea that we learn criminal behavior, and criminal behavior is reinforced and also legitimized within certain groups within society. Conflict theory also helps us to understand the nature of crime in society. That we have in society various groups that are positioned in different levels within our society, and there are certain attitudes that emerge among those who are the underclass or the have-nots within society, and this explains crime. But also, we also have the idea that we have people that are at the higher levels, the elites within society, who have power, who exploit and oppress and promote inequality among those who are the have-nots or those at the lower levels of society. Public policy is very central to crime and deviance in society. There are public policies that can promote a higher degree of employment and also can have the adverse effect, can increase the level of unemployment. For example, deregulation of corporations may lead to downsizing or right-sizing or flatlining, whatever you prefer, phenomena we saw in the 1980s, where companies reduced the number of employees. And so a policy, a corporate policy or public policy, and typically there is an interaction between public policy and corporate policies, can contribute to things like unemployment that may lead to crime as well. And so there are things that we can gain from these theories in order to explain the nature of crime in society. Let's summarize. the idea that there is a culture of deviance in society, that there are people who have specific values, and these values can be used in order to influence criminal behavior, but also can reinforce criminal behavior. It is a value system that rewards people for deviance and crime. Also, we have the notion of strain, that we have people who have goals within society. Goals may be legitimate or illegitimate, but they also have either lack the means or have the legitimate means of achieving those goals. And for there to be deviance, there's always means and goals, but one or the other needs to be illegitimate for it to be an act of deviance or crime. So you can have legitimate goal but illegitimate means. You can have illegitimate goals but legitimate means. You certainly can have illegitimate goals and illegitimate means. And so Robert Merton helped us to understand the nature of strain in society. This is a very important chapter looking at theories of strain and cultural deviance theories.